she's the secret weapon behind two World Cup winning teams, England in 2003 and South Africa in 2007.
I remember walking onto the field after the final whistle and saying to Johnny Wilkinson, "Well, Johnny, well done." He turned around and said, "Thank you very much, but thank you for adding an extra edge to my game." And he says he now used to get the ball and he had 3 decisions and he chose the best one. He's seeing it at the same speed as you and I are seeing it. It's just we've taught his eyes to pick up information so quickly that he perceives it as slow motion. Get off these devices. If you want to be the best player in the world, get off it, don't use it. We're kind of entertaining players instead of really training players. The most important aspect, these are trainable skills. So you're not born with that ability. But I saw magic in his hands, and I actually turned to him and I said to him, "If you give me 6 months, I'll help you win a major." I always have the philosophy that a player can make a difference, but a team can make a miracle.
Do it!
Hi everybody, welcome to another episode on the Lessons from the Game podcast, and today's guest, she's the secret weapon behind two World Cup winning teams, England in 2003 and South Africa in 2007. She also worked with the All Blacks years ago. But Dr. Sherylle Calder didn't lift weights or draw up tactics. She trained their vision. The leading specialist in visual awareness and performance coaching. She built iGym, a groundbreaking system that helps athletes, leaders to see faster, react sharper, and make better decisions under pressure. Today, we unpack why your eyes, not your strength or your speed, might be the missing piece to unlocking next-level performance in rugby and in life. Dr. Sherylle Calder, Doc, good to see you again. It's been years. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, guys. Lovely to chat to you.
All right. Ben, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks, mate. It's good to see you as well. Bit of sun here today in London for a change. So it's 1 minute, it's like 1 minute rainy, next minute sunny. Summer hasn't started yet, but all good.
Okay, awesome stuff.
What about you, mate? How's La Rochelle?
Oh, great, man. I just chilled at the beach this afternoon. Nice and sunny,
nice.
Still slightly warm. But yeah, all good, man. And loving the summer in La Rochelle. But looking forward to catch up with some family in North time. We're end of our season right now. So lots of work to do for the season lying ahead. But Doc, we're going to get stuck into it.
Yep.
Take us back to 2003, winning the World Cup with England.
Yeah.
If you can tell us more about the role that you played in that World Cup and your experiences with Sir Clive Woodward.
Yeah, so really cool. And, if I have to really bring it down and cut it short, I was working with All Blacks, and I was actually working with him in South Africa when they played the Springboks, and he sent some coaches out to South Africa to watch the game and find me, and which they did, and then he kept calling me and saying, "Come work with England," and I said, "No, I have a contract with All Blacks," and etc. But anyway, when my contract finished with the All Blacks, I actually sent him a mail and said, "Are you still interested?" And I don't know if you know Clive well enough. He's like, yes, can you fly tomorrow? And I'm like, okay, I'll come as soon as I can. And he said, well, come into the team for a week, come show us what you do, work with the players, and then we'll make a decision. And I flew in to London and went to their training hotel and field and met Clive and walked into this team with all the RFU members, all the players, all the coaches, you can imagine, and I presented what I did and worked with the players that day. And Clive called me the next morning and said, go fetch your bags, come back, we want you to work with us. And that was really the start of it. So a great experience. He had the belief of critical non-essentials, and that's really what my work is about, where I believe that one decision in a whole World Cup can win or lose a World Cup. So that's kind of what I worked on. And in the May of 2003, I remember standing on the field and saying to Clive that that I think all the teams in that World Cup are on a par. And if we want to win the World Cup, we've got to make better decisions under pressure. And that I thought that I could take the software program, which iGym, which I developed, and add decision making into that. And, we trained the players. And I remember walking onto the field after the final whistle and saying to Johnny Wilkinson, "Well, Johnny, well done," and he turned around to me, but he's such a cool guy. He turned around and said, "Thank you very much, but thank you for adding an extra edge to my game." And then when we got back to London, we went through the streets of London. I happened to end up in a taxi with him, and I asked him, how did my work influence his performance? And he said that he used to get the ball and kick or run or pass or do whatever. And he says he now used to get the ball and he had 3 decisions and he chose the best one. So that really defines kind of the work that I do. It underlines that. And if you look at that last drop goal, he had the players coming down on him, which you could see, and he put the ball on his non-dominant foot, and put it over. So, so it was exciting for me. It was a great fit for me because Clive believed in what I did, and the players trained effectively, and it kind of all just fitted in. It was meant to be, I think.
It's brilliant. We're definitely going to break that down more because, being a born Englishman, but actually a thoroughbred South African in his heart, you'll definitely have lots of questions. Today's Lessons from the Game episode was possible thanks to the support of Harris Begley Financial Planning, headed up by former Blackheath player Matt Begley. They are the experts to speak to for tailored advice on investments, mortgages, insurance, and pensions, helping you plan for a future of financial security. So when you think money, think Harris Begley and head to www.harrisbegley.co.uk. Approver Quilter Financial Services Limited and Quilter Mortgage Planning Limited, March 2025. I'd like to start off our episode by asking our guests this question. What is the one lesson from the game that you have learned that you can share to our young and aspiring rugby players and coaches that want to level up their performances of their team?
So if I have to talk about my science, I always say to players, if you haven't trained this part of your game, you're actually underperforming. That we can add a whole new component to your game and make you a better player.
Okay, great. Yeah, visual awareness, it's key, it's important, but there's lots to dive deep into. Ben, I'm going to give it over to you. I know you've got loads of questions waiting.
No, it's just incredible. And I guess it was just I'd love to know so much, Sherylle, but when you started working with the All Blacks and then with England, how much of your work did you have to adjust? Did you have to, was that stuff you were already doing? Because or was it something that you were passionate about changing and you had an idea of how you were going to interpret your work into rugby? What was the methodology that you used there? What was the rationale?
I don't know if you have a little bit of an idea where my work comes from. So I was intrigued as a young kid, really as a tiny kid. I was always intrigued by why do you do it like that? How do you do it? How can you do it better, etc. And I used to experiment as a kid. I used to play these games with myself and experiment about seeing it and how you would judge and how you would, make a decision, not knowing about decision making when I was so young. But and then I then started playing hockey, and I played for South Africa. And the early years, I wasn't able to compete internationally because we were isolated. So I used to go over to Europe on my own, and wherever I went, people used to say, "How did you see that? How did you do that?" And it actually went over my head. I just thought everyone saw what I did. Till we got back into international hockey, and we played a couple of tests against different countries, and it got to a point where people said stuff to me, and I realised I do see different. And then I actually approached Tim Noakes at University of Cape Town. He was, the top scientist in those days, and I said, I really believe that I can influence performance by doing this and this and this. And he said, "I don't know what you're talking about, but I'll help you research. You tell me what you know, and if we put that together, we'll create something." And that's kind of where it started. And going to the All Blacks, No one was doing what I was doing. It was my own. I'd already completed my PhD, so I'd proven in research that these abilities and these skills work. So it was easy to go to them and say, this is what I do. But daunting for me as a South African, Gurthro, you would know, Springboks, All Blacks, whatever, I was on a mission.
At least you got back to us. At least you got back to us.
I know,
Yeah, you did the whole route. Yeah.
You can imagine how daunting it was for me. I flew all the way to New Zealand on my own. I couldn't phone anyone and say, what do you think I must do, and so on. But anyway, it developed, Ben, answering your question, it developed that I used to train them manually. Then I realized, no, I keep traveling to and fro, that I actually need to leave a training program with them. Then I started developing some training programs. Someone in Potch University actually helped me initially. Then I left something with them to train on, and then I put it on a CD. And then I realized, no, I need to monitor them, because Gurthro, you would know, the elite athlete, we think they always train effectively. They don't. You got to check, did you train? What did you train? You know that. And then I started developing a program that was on the internet where I could liaise with them, and change programs, and it is what it is today. So, Ben, that's kind of where it all started.
That's awesome. Go on, G. Were you going to say something?
No, carry on. I'll follow up afterwards.
Sherylle, what's fascinating is having, as a coach now, and about 10 years ago, or maybe a bit longer, people started talking about skill acquisition theory, and G and I have joked about it quite a bit, and it's come up. And
you've taught me that phrase, skill acquisition.
We've referenced, one of the people we've referenced and we've spoken about with some of the other guests is the footballer Frank Lampard, and he had this sort of 360 vision, and there's some really good clips of him before he receives the ball. He's the language they use. He's scanning. He's looking everywhere. He's sort of almost got his head looks like it's got a 360 sort of rotational swivel, and is that sort of thing and one of the theories is that he developed that ability due to his physical limitations. Is as a hockey player, can you relate to that? Is that something that you could understand? You developed that as well, and then that made you think, or was it as a young person?
Yeah, I definitely had that. So, when I went over on my own, really from total isolation, as I said, I could compete. So people three times my size, I could tackle them quite effectively. But it didn't go about strength. It went about timing, and that is a visual component. So I quickly realized that you can do stuff effectively, and that if you mention Lampard, I think you develop those skills as you grow up due to different reasons. You said Lampard was for some physical components or inabilities or whatever it was. Different people, different things, and that's exciting. I mean, when you asked me in the beginning, what have I learned? Probably the most important aspect, these are trainable skills. So you're not born with that ability. So the Messis and the Tendulkars and whoever, you could probably mention a lot of other names. They're not born with that ability. They develop that as they that's exciting. It means you can make everyone better than what they are.
Yeah, that's sort of motivating and inspiring at the same time, isn't it? Because you've got you're not sort of stuck with your skill set. Yeah.
Doc, I think what is great is that this topic we're talking about, your vision, your visual awareness, your eye fitness, and you can maybe give us a bit more in detailed definition about that. But we do see in the modern day, we've talked specifically about rugby, having the ability to scan, absorb information.
Yes.
If you can just maybe explain it for the former props like me, that is still developing their skill set and focusing on skill acquisition and increasing their IQ, the intelligence. If you can explain to us a bit the importance of your eyes, what's the science behind that? How can it help rugby players to evolve, make that better decisions, identify space, be more conscious of what's around them.
Yeah. I'll actually tell a story about you that I remember very well of the
This is gonna be
first game.
good.
No, it's really interesting. The first game that we played, that I was involved with Box, we played like a World 11 in Johannesburg. Gurthro, I don't remember if you remember that game. 2005, I think it was. And I often tell the story. I say I was on the field and I could see, I always say this prop coming across the field to me, this big guy coming across the field from a distance. I could see you coming towards me. And I don't think you remember it, when you walked up to me, you said to me, "You know what, I saw more on the field today than I've ever seen before." I remember you saying that to me. And it's so ironic that, because we often, as coaches, we say to players, scan, or we say to them, do this or do that. But if you don't have the visual, physical ability to do that, you can't do it. You can do it, you can do it generally, but in a highly competitive, pressurized game, limited time, if that ability is not up to standard, you can't do it effectively. Just like physical skills or technical skills, etc.
Yeah.
You need to equip the player with ability to scan, with ability to judge, with ability to time things, with ability to be at the right time, right place. And then you can ask him to do it on the field. But we as coaches, we're not equipping players with those skills, but we're asking them to do it on the field. So those skills are trainable. And I've found easy ways of getting players fit enough, not physically fit enough, visual, motor, decision-making fit enough, trainable skill.
Yeah. That's quite interesting that you say that, Doc, because, we have this philosophy in rugby as coaches: the fitter you are, that improves your decision making. We talk also about the mental fitness. But, and it's quite interesting because a lot of coaches say the fitter you are, you'll be able to see everything. So that's clearly a misconception in rugby or in sport in general. So if you can explain it to me and to our audience, why are we wrong? Why does physical fitness, it's not the deciding factor that you'll be able to scan better or be more aware of what's happening around you? And how can coaches actually equip their players with that skill set?
So I think there is a little bit of truth in that. So, if I'm not physically fit enough and I get tired, my head goes down, I struggle to get into the right positions, etc. So yes, so from that perspective, I can understand it. But we're talking about, at the peak of your game, in a really tough environment, World Cup final, or whatever you want to call it, the eyes and the brain fatigue just like the rest of the body. So if you're not going to make those components fit enough, they're going to let you down in the game. And then, as I said, this motor skills or the technical skills are related to that. You would know line-out throws. I watch a lot of rugby. Line-out throws drive me mad because I can't believe that is what you do for a living and you can't throw the ball in straight, or you can't time your jump or, all kinds of stuff. So I believe that those skills are given in the game, but yet they cause breakdown in performance so often. But these skills are trainable. You can physically train your eyes and your brain and your motor skills, and you can train decision-making under pressure. So, for example, in the iGym program, which I've developed, it's an online program because you can imagine working with the All Blacks and me sitting in South Africa. I needed to work with players all over the world. So you can train anywhere, anytime, any place. But in a 10-minute session of iGym, you can make about 500 decisions based on something you haven't seen before. Now, if you do that 3 times a week, you must be improving some component of decision making. But it's not only a decision; it's taking information in, processing it, responding, and making a decision. And the exciting thing about my work, these are trainable skills, and everyone can do it. And if you haven't done it, you're not performing to your potential.
Sherylle, that's fascinating. I guess I've got quite a few questions on the back of that specifically, but one that springs to mind is I think it sounds like a big misconception is that it requires it would be only for certain people in certain positions, like, so it's catch pass, and people think of it like that. And then I immediately thought, I think you worked with Ernie Els in 2012, and he name checks you as having a huge effect on his ability to putt, I think. And obviously that's a static situation, and dealing with a different. Can you talk us through that and how it works in that scenario, please?
Well, end of the day, your eyes are telling you where to put the ball, just like in any sport. And you've got to judge line and length. It's all visual stuff. It's all judgment. But the thing is, you've got to put that into the hands. So you need to get the hands doing what your eyes and your brain is telling you to do. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with golf, but so with Ernie, it's probably the most amazing work I've done with any athlete.
Wow. Really?
Or any sportsman, because he was ready to give up the game. And I saw him at a tournament, caught up with him. One of his mentors, Johan Rupert Gurthro, got me to work with him. And when I saw him putt, I could see that he was really struggling. But then I asked him just to chip a few balls, and I don't know how to explain to people what my eyes saw, but I saw magic in his hands. And I actually turned to him and I said to him, if you give me 6 months, I'll help you win a major. Now, I don't know if you guys know how major is. I mean, there's a major this week. And it's really major. I mean, and Ernie was about to give up the game because he couldn't put a 3 foot putt in. He was under pressure. But the game of golf, lots of people give you lots of information. And especially when you're struggling as a player, I think rugby as well, and other sports as well. You get all this information from so many different people. But again, Ben, my work involves your system is different to Gurthro's, is different to Ernie's. And if I coach all three of you putting, I would tell you all three to do it differently, because your visual motor setup and physical setup is totally different to everyone.
Yeah.
So the work I do is unique to the individual. But
I'm fascinated. Yeah, it's fascinating, Sherylle. That's so interesting. And when you were talking, then it reminded me. You must have. Well, you did. I think work with Dave Allred. He was known as a kicking coach in your time with England in 2003.
Yes.
Gee, I don't know if you know Dave Allred, but he played rugby, but then he coached in American football, and then Clive Woodward brought him in, and he did originally punting down at Bath. And then he became Johnny Wilkinson's kicking coach. And now but similarly, he works across sports. He's worked with Luke Donald in golf, and he's worked with the Molinaris, and to huge success as well. They've become championship winning golfers. And it's a similar sort of thing. People will say, okay, but you're a kicking coach, so that's the lane you operate in, and you must only know about kicking, as opposed to thinking of the individual as you sort of described.
Yeah. So just saying, Dave's amazing. I really loved working with him in my time with England. But I think, Gurthro, you asked me in the beginning a lesson, but there is another one I'd really like to talk about, is that coaches normally coach players the way they did stuff. And I believe in this, what I work on is unique to the individual. And every single player I've worked with has been totally different. And you need to know what his skills are, especially his visual decision-making skills, to be able to coach him specific in his needs. And we're all different. So often we impose our own thoughts on a player, and it's actually not right for that player. I'll give you a wild example. Keep your eye on the ball. It might not be the right information for certain players, But anyway, that's by the way.
Just a quick question for you, Sherylle. I think maybe, obviously you've developed this great software program to work on your eye fitness, to develop that skill set of absorbing information. But is there any other ways? Let's give us an example. And we see this in the modern day game, where you got your forward pod where they're running hard, and the pass behind the back, you got the fly off in the pocket. And that's sometimes tough to defend, especially when you got, say, your locks there or your tight forwards in that position. When there's so many passes involved behind the back, you got dummy runners coming in. So is there any advice that you can give coaches to help players to develop that skill set, to be more aware and more conscious, and kind of like you're focusing on the player, but developing that ability in your peripheral vision, like, okay, be careful, here's a threat coming here as well. Before I make my decision, I need to be conscious of that.
Yeah, that's quite complex. Yes, you can train players to do that better. But again, I say if their visual systems aren't equipped to be able to scan in such conditions, a lot of players' skills close down and they're not aware of what's happening around them. And if you're looking in the wrong place, you're going to make the wrong decision. So be it a running line, be it running off a player, be it creating space, be whatever, whatever you're doing. So, but train those skills. If you train those skills, you almost don't have to coach the players to be where they have to be. They will be there automatically.
Okay, great. And then, Sherylle, you were with us in 07 in the World Cup, and we currently speaking to a lot of players that were involved in that team as well. Recently had Victor Matfield on the pod as well. We had Anne Lee as well. It was great to chat with her, and everybody's got a different version or different way they experienced that time. What do you believe was instrumental to us winning that World Cup? And what impact do you believe what you did with us had on our game?
Whew. That's. I think. I mean, if you want to choose one player which is easier to talk about or see visually, is obviously all the intercepts, Gurthro, getting the banners and the Jean de Villiers, etc., to do those intercepts. And you obviously remember the one in the semi-final against Argentina. I think just putting opponents under pressure by them knowing that you might pick up the ball, puts them under pressure, prevents them making passes. They get cautious because they know that this team are kind of sharp enough to pick up anything on the field. And I think that semi-final, when Abana scored that try in the semi-final after he intercepted, I actually knew we'd win the World Cup. I just saw the team's whole demeanour was different to any other team there. And, be it sharpness, be whatever it was. And just the combination of the players and the coaches, we were all diverse, yet we had this common goal. I remember I think it was 2005, we played in France, and Jake took this Energate bottle and put it in the middle of the change room after the game. And he said, when we return here, we'll put the Rugby World Cup there. So I think just having early vision of wanting to achieve that and then doing the right stuff, Gurthro. You need to do the right stuff to win. I was talking to someone else the other day, and I think there's so much going on in coaching which has no role to play in real performance. We kind of entertaining players instead of really training players.
Okay.
But anyway, it's probably a whole book on its own, a whole story on
Can
its
you
own.
elaborate on that? Because that interesting.
Sure, you're not getting away that easily. That would be amazing to understand more what you mean.
So, for example, let me use Ernie as example. We would hit way less balls or putt way less balls, but what we did was quality and was directly linked to performance during competition. And if you can train like that, you'll be more successful.
Yeah.
And I think we do a lot of other stuff which has no role to play in performance at all. So, it's about being smart.
That's fascinating.
Keeping players busy, kind of, in a way, Ben, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And again, sorry, you reminded me of Dave Allred, because I remember speaking and listening to some stuff, and he was talking about working in say 5 reps at a time, just five quality repetitions, walk away, reset, go again, but creating those match play scenarios or whatever it would be, but actually replicating proper scenarios and then actually walking away instead of just doing 100 monotonous and going through this iron, then this iron. And also you made me think, gee, we've had these types of conversations before. You encounter this, I think, as actually you probably got to say no comment, but as a scrum coach, I'll speak to, say, a defence coach of a test match team, and they'll say to me, "Oh, I had 16 minutes with the team this week." And I'm thinking, you've had 16 minutes, but all these other peripheral things that have become the main thing, and they're not, they're not necessarily the main thing. And
Exactly.
yeah, and I
What
guess
wins
that's
World Cup?
yeah,
And not what wins World Cup wins competitions, and
yeah.
we need to be reminded about that continuously.
And I suppose from Sherylle, and from going forward from that, you've had amazing success in all these different sports. I think you've worked in Formula One as well, haven't you? I think when I came to visit you a few years ago in Stellenbosch, I saw your a crash helmet or something like that. Who did you work with?
I did a lot of work with a couple of guys, but mainly with Valtteri Bottas.
Okay, wow.
Bottas, I worked with him for a really long time. I was actually working with McLaren, and we were in Finland with a pit stop team. And Bottas was a young driver in junior ranks still. And there's a guy, Aki Hintsa, who was the medical doctor of McLaren, a Finnish guy, a really innovative, one of the most amazing guys I've ever met. And he got Bottas to come and meet me wherever we were staying. And I tested him, assessed him, and found some skills that were really lacking. One of which is probably one of the more important skills for a Formula One driver. And that's what I said to you guys earlier. We all have these strengths and weaknesses in the system. And you can make the bad ones better, and you make the good ones even better. And we identified. I started working with him as a young driver, and many years later into Formula One. And I used to always ask him, especially at Formula One races, because he used to walk the track before a race, on the Wednesday, and I'd walk with him, and I would tell him what visual cues I think he should be picking up, etc. And I used to always ask him how did iGym influence his performance, and consistently said, when I get in the car, everything seems like slow motion. But it's not slow motion. He's seeing it at the same speed as you and I are seeing it. It's just we've taught his eyes to pick up information so quickly that he perceives it as slow motion.
Wow.
So yes,
I want to jump in.
Yeah, go for it, G.
Ben, sorry, I got a very important question because this is related to probably one of the most important rugby players on the field, and it comes down to the props, okay? These are guys giving their life, putting their life on the line. They're always constantly getting shot in the heat in the oven, they're in the scrum. And we often talk about the props is this myth of going into ghost mode. So ghost mode, Sherylle, is when you are completely wasted after scrum. You get up, you have no idea where you are. You're seeing your dead ancestors, they're hovering around the field. And do you believe if you train your eye fitness, this could actually, because this is where a lot of props get it wrong. I always laugh because when you kind of get up from a scrum, what a prop does, it takes 2 steps back, it moves forward, walking, then he starts jogging, only then to realize he went in the wrong direction. So
I can give you an example. I think a very good example of a prop, which you can relate to, Gurthro. So when I worked with you guys, we spoke about that quite a lot. And if you think about Osterrand at the World Cup, he had a slight knee. He'd come into the squad with a knee injury, an old knee injury. So I remember working with him, and I really believe what training iGym, what it did for him. He got up from there, and instead of first running there and then running there, we cut down his running lines. So he would get up and run, not where the ball is, maybe where the ball is going, if you can call it that. And also do you remember the tackles he made in that World Cup? Because we got his timing of tackles correct. So you didn't get too far away from a player or too close to a player. You got it exactly. I mean, I remember that really clearly, the timing of his tackles in that World Cup. And yes, of course, you can make your life a lot easier as a prop if you train these abilities.
Well, I was just thinking when you said, I mean, that efficiency of getting up and you're not running as much, that's a really good one that I hadn't even thought of, I suppose. And when you think of the timing and the tackling, I was thinking of Johnny Wilkinson. I wonder how much of was there a crossover, do you think, Sherylle, with his tackling? Because he was renowned as a good defender, as a good tackler.
Yeah, yeah.
Inevitably, his tackling must have improved at the same time as,
Yeah.
through the work that you did with him.
Absolutely. Well, if what you take in is more effective, your judgments are better, your distance control is better, your timing is better. You probably don't get hit that hard either, or hit the guy that hard. You get your
Yeah.
exactly correct.
You used to see his timing, and it just looked at it.
So, I think if you've trained these skills, it does have a indirect effect on less injuries as well.
The question I was going to ask before, I've just remembered. I was going to ask you how much of it requires when you're working with somebody. Do you immerse yourself in the sport and really understand their requirements first? Is it a lot of getting used to them, or is it actually you're just letting them talk you through the scenarios, and you just get to know it as you go along organically?
I do. I do. I mean, I work with all kinds of sports. I've actually just a couple of weeks started working with the rodeo team in the US.
Wow.
So, which I've never done before. But of course, it's timing. It's all those coordination skills, etc. Yes, I need to know what they do, what the sport involves. But the crux of my PhD was that you work with the individual. And if you improve his skills, you improve his sport. Doesn't matter what sport it is. But yes, I do need to have an understanding to be able to feed information to the individual about how he can better use his visual system to perform better.
Yeah.
But the training aspect, iGym has been designed in a way that it adapts to you as an individual. So Ben, you would do better at some skills than Gurthro would, and vice versa, and what I would. So the training program is like a personal trainer. It takes you along a route, and if you're not good at something, it will keep you there, and then move you on. Other skills you're better at will move you on quicker. And it's probably the same as going to a physical gym. I mean, if I go to the gym tomorrow, you ask me to bench press 50 kilograms, I wouldn't even be able to move it. But if you gradually build me through that, I'll be able to do it in a couple of weeks or months, probably me. But so it's just like going to a physical gym. You need to take your eyes and your brain and your motor skills and decision making to the iGym. And you train in the same way as you do physically. You kind of use the same skill.
So, Sherylle, the question I want to ask you, we've spoken about visual awareness. We've spoken about absorbing information on the field. So I would like to know, is there a benefit by training your eyes, doing your iGym, that will help a player or anyone in general, like in meetings? Like, this is the big topic amongst coaches at the moment. We all have our different philosophies. We say the generation has changed. The attention span is less. Some are saying that they'll have attention span of 3 minutes max. Before it was 30, then it's 15. But by training your eyes, can that help you to absorb information better, especially when it comes to the visual aspect, watching videos, watching obviously presentations explaining your role, where you need to be, kind of helping you to remember what your role is and what your job is?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the great offshoots of training iGym is the ability to focus and concentrate. And while you're doing iGym, if you don't do that, you can't complete the drill. So it kind of forces you to do that. And definitely, Gurthro, the era we live in today, the effects of smartphones on performance. I have seen where I work that there's a decline in the skill level of the elite performer. And the only reason is overuse of tiny devices, smartphones, because the eyes and the brain was not designed to work on that. So we pretty much designed to look for, etc., etc. Early days hunt for food, and that kind of, that's how the eye and brain was designed. Now we're getting in here with a small device. There's no judgment, there are no eye movement skills, the awareness is deteriorating, and then we train. We have players who spend over 10 hours a day on smartphones. We have school kids who spend an average of 6 hours a day on smartphones. So now you're in here all the time. So for 6 hours of the day, you're training bad skills. Rugby training is how long? 2 hours? Hour and a half? For an hour and a half a day, you're training rugby. Now, the rest of the time, so how does 6 hours compare to 1.5 hours? And what overrides at the end of the day? So we have found with school kids, reading skills have deteriorated, retention skills, comprehension skills have deteriorated. So we do a lot of work in schools because we work with young elite sports people, and the parents are coming back and say, look at the kids' academic results. Their sports improved, but look at the academic results. So yes, because we're forcing them Gurthro to concentrate, and I think the attention span is 10 seconds. I don't think any longer than that, and not because they don't want to listen, just because they train to not listen, and they train to not concentrate, etc. So and these devices were designed to distract you. They talk about digital cocaine. So it affects the brain in the same way as cocaine. So I'm standing on top of a mountain telling people for the last 10 years already, get off these devices. If you want to be the best player in the world, get off it. Don't use it. Have timeouts, and we have to use them. I use them in my work as well, but just be so disciplined with yourself.
It's funny you mentioned that, Sherylle, because I explained it to Ben a while back. I did this media deprivation challenge where I wasn't allowed to watch any YouTube, no social media. I couldn't even listen to audiobooks or read anything, just complete deprivation from all media. And firstly, that was very hard. That was very tough. But the funny thing is, what it taught me was after that week, if I watched a video or if I had to use my computer, it's like, is it related to work? Do I really need to use it? Can I potentially just rather use my notebook? I love it's got a remarkable notebook here. It allows me no distractions, no apps whatsoever. It's brilliant. I started focusing on practicing a bit more mindfulness. That's something which, like, when people say, "Man, that's stupid," I started doing because I wanted to improve my productivity. I wanted to improve my efficiency as a coach. And I started practicing that by just going to walks. Like now, I enjoy going on walks without listening to a podcast, And so what I've picked up is, and I think this is important because I still need to have my eyes tested anyway. I started realizing that with reading, because of, maybe it's not overstimulation, maybe it's just age. I'm turning 44 years old. Time is flying. So can overstimulation of these screens eventually impact our eyes? And is it important to actually have, we spoke about eye fitness, but eye recovery, and how can you help your eyes recover and to perform at the optimal state?
So we've obviously iGym is an antidote to this. So if you're doing iGym, at least you working against some of the negative effects of it. So that's a really kind of a quick fix, but it's not a quick fix. The real fix is get off your phone, just limit yourself, etc. It really has a very big impact on our eyes and our brain, our motor skills, our awareness, our peripheral, our judgment. We've done a lot of work with insurance companies, work with Discovery in South Africa. You know them as Vitality in Europe. And we put all their drivers on iGym, and we brought down the loss ratio in claims between 20 and 25% in the first 6 months on the people who
Wow.
did iGym.
Wow.
And all we did, Gurthro, was teach them to use their visual system effectively. And that's really what you were doing by going for walks. You're looking at things, you're not being distracted, et cetera, et cetera. So just what you did was a sort of I don't want to say antiquated or a long-term thing to get your eyes and your brain and your body and your awareness to be switched on again, because we switch them off by being in these little screens all the time. But then we go on the field and we expect to perform, So you can't do that if you spend all your time on a small device which has a negative effect on your on-field performance. Don't expect to perform at an optimum then.
No, it's so true. Like what I know Ben loves his walking as well. What I started appreciating is now I'm actually seeing stuff around me. Like I'm appreciating something simple. I saw a house that I'm like, wow, that's actually nicely designed. It's a bit old, but I like the rustic look of it. And I said like, hey, that tree is actually quite cool. Okay, I'm sounding weird right now, but 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 I think maybe to explain our audience, we spoke a lot about iGym. If you can maybe give an example. What can they like? Obviously, we know the benefits of iGym, but if you can maybe give an example of what are the type of exercises they are doing online on iGym, that would be great.
It's really identifying different scenarios and objects and basing a decision on that and being able to respond effectively. So it's built on an algorithm of how accurate you are and how quickly you make a decision. And that's what we do in life and in sport and at school and everything all the time. It's really based on those accuracy and speed of decision and giving the right answer or responding correctly. And it's almost as simple as that. So we create different drills or training drills which use your eyes and your brain in all the ways that it's meant to be used and all the ways you use it on the field. And you use it when driving your car or when studying, etc. And we train you in that kind of way. So not in getting on a small phone and seeing nothing and no eye movements and no judgments and etc. etc. So it's just really using your system as it should be used.
Thanks, Sherylle. It's really interesting. So you're talking about everybody using their phones much more. Actually, one of the questions I was going to ask you was, is your work even more important now than it, say, was 10, 15 years ago because of that? And I guess you sort of answered that already, but by explaining here what you did before. But we've been all been environments, and it depends. I travel around and I'm in different environments, rugby and football, and you have different coaches and they have different team ethoses and cultures. Some of them have like a ban on phones prior to the game, and others, I've seen recently a guy doing his goal kicking, and he was before the match, and he was practicing his goal kicking. And he was on his phone.
What's his name? Say his name, Ben.
Sherylle might have worked with him, so I can't say his name. No,
If I worked with.
No, I mean he's probably not the only one. So it's just that you see players in changing rooms just before the game and they're on their phone, and I always think that if that cannot be good for you. What's your view around that? We get a lot of young players asking us for advice and help, and perhaps they haven't come across the iGym yet. But as a general rule or a rule of thumb for them or some guidance for them, is there something we could tell them that don't use your phone sort of, I don't know, an hour before kickoff at least, that, or before you train? Is that something that we could help them, or they would hugely benefit from?
Absolutely. I mean, I even go as far as saying on match day, don't use your phone. You can phone and talk to people, but don't use your phone, because if you're okay with making mistakes on the field, use your phone. If not, don't use your phone. But we do damage in the week because we do it all the time. So, and obviously a lot of people climb into bed and get on their phones, and the blue light has a very great effect on sleep patterns.
Yeah.
So you sleep worse. If you sleep worse, you perform worse. So, there's just lots of reasons why you shouldn't be on it.
Yeah.
Other than
killing
the eyes of the brain.
But it's interesting you saying that because obviously I love listening to podcasts as well, and listening to Andrew Huberman's podcast. He's talking
Mm,
about the constant dopamine heats that we are
mm,
getting, and especially linked to social media. And it
yes,
makes sense, if you're on game day, if you're on your phone, and
Yeah.
maybe it's not a movie, but you're constantly on social media, like the going down that rabbit hole of doom scrolling. Like what I do,
exactly.
for example, maybe is useful is I got an application on my phone called Opal. So
Yes.
actually it blocks all social media. And
Okay.
if I click on social media, then it actually gives me 5 to 10 seconds. Like, then you have to time to reflect. Do I
All
actually
right.
want to go? Do I need to go on it?
Yeah,
Then you
exactly.
have time, and you can have a hard stop. So I do this during work times, and it's only certain
Yeah.
hours of the day, and I need to
Yeah.
physically unlock it. So that's a great one. I've also seen the effect it has on my performance as a coach, getting at rest in and simple things. And it's often, I think this is where the biggest misconception for rugby players is, I need to watch something to go to sleep. That's the
No,
biggest bunch of
no,
BS.
no.
Just last night, when I realized I was researching some Ben, I was looking for some great inspiration for us, for us
Yeah.
old guys here on social media, and I was looking for some inspiration. And before I knew it, 15 minutes, and luckily I set my
Exactly.
timer, 15
Exactly.
minutes when it goes, and I was like, how am I going to fall asleep? I'm like, don't be an idiot when you got this. And I just did something
No.
simple, but just focusing on my breathing. Everything was dark, and within
Yeah.
10 minutes, I was out.
Yeah.
So sometimes we
Yeah.
overcomplicate it, and we
Yeah.
provide these false excuses.
I know there's a lot of false information out there. There are a lot of gimmicks
Mm,
out there, a lot of false information which people fall for all the time. Just got to get back to what is
yeah.
what we were designed to do. Our bodies were designed to do.
Doc, I just want to change it up quickly because we have a lot of people. We just had Ali Williams on here as well, crazy man,
Right.
and
Okay.
and we had so many great guys. Anthony
Yeah.
Watson. The main thing needs to remain the main thing, but there's a lot of recurring themes where it comes down to how important work ethic is. And I remember what I really enjoyed about your iGym program back then was first the gamification of it was quite cool. Having our leaderboards, I think that's just a great way to kind of like motivate teams, kind of keep them accountable. But working with Brian Abena, obviously we made our debut the same tour in 2004, and just see him skyrocket. He had an unbelievable work. So number one, what memories do you have of him working as a rugby player? Because I do believe he's like one of the real first professional rugby players, really going above and beyond to, acquire new skills, obsessed with skill acquisition. Ben, that one's for you. And
Mhm.
but he evolved not just in his ability to intercept. He probably became one of the best defenders in world rugby. So in the past, everybody was like, oh no, last defender, it's the wing, we're in trouble. But he could read everything beforehand, and he could make the right calls. He could give information to his teammates. So he really evolved. So what can you share with us working with Brian? Obviously he worked on training his eye fitness, but what other characteristics did you see in Brian while working with him?
Obviously, his work ethic was amazing, and he just always inquired how he can make himself better and what I can do for him to make him better. And I can sketch a scenario for you. So, worked with you guys till the end of '07, and then I actually went over and worked with British Olympics in 2008. Brian was then playing for the Bulls. And I don't know if you remember Gurthro. I remember playing for the Booker, and he got his timing of his tackles wrong. He used to go too quick, and the
Mhm.
guys would get past him. And I remember a scenario where they booed him on the field and all kinds of stuff. And I actually got hold of him during 2008. I said, yes, Brian, how about getting back on our gym? Which he did. And by the end of that season, he was player of the season. So, which tells us a story in its own. We all have these strengths and weaknesses, and be it timing of tackles, whatever visual skill Brian lacked in, he needed to get that skill up to standard again, which then affected his on-field performance. So it's just like the physical system. When you stop training these skills, those same bad habits come back, if I can call it bad habits. So, but he had amazing work ethic. I think that of all the guys who have been super successful, who I've worked with, the bottom line is work ethic and just going the extra mile and doing extra when other guys don't do it. So with iGym as well, when you're injured, actually, you can, if you do iGym, I can keep you in the game. So that when I worked with England in '03, Richard Hill got injured. He tore his hamstring right early in the tournament, and he came back and played in the semi-final. And we actually brought him back to the semi-final as much in the game, if not better, than he was when he wasn't, because he would spend time doing thousands of decision-making repetitions, which keep him ready and the feel of the game. You keep your feel for the game. And Banner as well, he was just, I don't know if you remember, Gurthro, I used to always do that ball drill with him just before he went on the field. And it just gave confidence. He just knew he was ready to do anything on the field. But I couldn't do it with him if he didn't have that work ethic to train the amount of iGym training that he did. And I did a lot of on-field stuff with him, how he should be taking high balls, how he should be going into a tackle because he's different to other guys, etc. So part of my work as well, other than you doing iGym for exclusive clients, is I work with you individually and teach you how to use your system effectively to make you perform better. But then you've got to be fit enough for me to be able to do that, and not physically fit enough, visual motor decision fit enough.
That's fascinating. Sherylle, if you could work in any sport, or is there a specific sport or individual that you think I could add a huge amount of value and that you'd just love to work in, or that you'd love to work in?
Probably if I could choose, Ben, golf. Because golf, you make a little mistake like this in the beginning, it ends as such a big mistake at the end.
Yeah.
So the measures are really important, and the game is, the pressure is tough, and I like working one-on-one. I believe I can achieve more by working individually with a player than with a group, Gurthro, working with a whole team. But there is that amazing component of working with a team by changing props performance and changing bats performance and etc. So Ben, I like both, but probably if I could, I'd do golf.
And is there a sport that you haven't worked in yet that you would love to work in, or you're really fascinated by?
I've kind of worked in everything.
That's amazing.
I really have. I mean, I've done NFL, and I've worked with Vancouver Canucks in ice hockey. I've worked in dog agility and curling, and if I can mention all the sports really. I've just been doing some guys in South Africa, which is called tent pegging, where they ride on a horse and have to put a sword through a certain area. So all kinds of everything. So I've done just about every sport.
That's very cool.
Sherylle, just before we wrap it up, Ben is still, I think he might have another question, and he's going to finish it up for us. But, we got a lot of people that listen to our podcast that are not just rugby players and that are not just coaches, or people that work in the corporate space, people that are leaders in their field. They are directors of a company, they're managing team, leaders of teams. And, productivity is important, and having that ability to optimize your, if we can call it, your intellectual performance, and having that ability to acquire knowledge and process information, and finding that window of opportunity. You need to be on top of your game. We experience this in the way as coaches, because we're spending time in front of our computer screens and analyzing, we're looking at data, we're looking for key information. And that also set me on a path a few years ago on how I can increase my productivity. And so if I'm a manager or director of a company, how will doing iGym help me or benefit me in my field, if I can put it that way?
It would benefit everyone as it does all the sports people. So I can just ask some executive, how fit are you? And they spend as much time on screens and on phones as what everyone else does. And it would have the same effect on their performance. So I worked with a big law firm in London at some point, and pretty much for those guys, you need to think on your feet. You need to make a decision on your feet. And if your visual cognitive decision-making system isn't fit enough, they probably don't need the motor skills as much as sport people do. If that system is fitter, you'll make better decisions. You'll think quicker on your feet. You'll read situations within a boardroom way better. And you'll just take pressure off yourself because you're fitter to do the job that you do. And when I ask sportsmen, I would ask them exactly the same question. What do you do today to make you better than you were last year? And we don't do that as executives and as non-sporting people. We just do what we do every day. But you actually need to do something to make yourself better and to make your productivity and your performance better. So are they fit enough? They could probably answer that question themselves.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I think there's so much we could ask you, Sherylle, but I think we're running out of time. It's been really fascinating. Thanks for coming on. The one question we always ask at the end is we'd love to know if there is one, and I think there might not be one, but one lesson from your time within rugby, and I guess it could be broader than that you've taken into everything else, your daily life, and one lesson from the game that you take and that you use on a regular basis.
Well, the teams I've been involved in, I always talk about it, is that the combination of coaching staff and players within the success, I'm talking successful teams, was amazing. You had youth, and you had experience, and you had discipline, and you had work ethic, and you had commitment, and you had passion, and you had all those skills. Everyone somewhere in the team would have that, and putting that as a team together is really what made teams successful. I always have the philosophy that a player can make a difference, but a team can make a miracle. And if in these successful teams, every player did their share, and that's where the miracles came from. And it is absolutely possible. It's always been my philosophy.
That's beautiful.
I've always believed that many players can make a difference, but a team can make a miracle. And I've seen lots of teams where they're amazing players in, but they never make miracles. You've got to gel as a team to do that, and it's possible. But it depends on the staff, the coaching staff, and the players, and how you empower them to believe in that.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that, Ben. I hope you wrote that down. Player can make a difference. Team can make a miracle.
I can see that being used on social media. On social media. I'm sure that's going to be
a quote post.
I've had player as well, and I did a lot of hockey coaching as well, and it's always been my philosophy. The team always rules. And then you really have amazing results.
No, sure. I just want to thank you for taking the time and sharing your knowledge and experience with us. I definitely learned a lot, and it just kind of reinforces what I believe what rugby players should be doing. And I think what you are telling us as well is doing that extra training, not just on your physical and mental fitness, but your eye fitness, and how important that is. I can definitely confirm that, and I definitely benefited from that as a player, having the ability to see things in slow motion, even though I'm not the fastest player on the field. That was brilliant. So thank you for taking the time and sharing your knowledge and experience with us. We will definitely put your website in our show notes. So for those of you listening or watching and you want to get more information on the iGym program, please check out the link in our description. Whether you're watching or listening on Spotify, please make sure to check it out and reach out to Dr. Sherylle Calder. And if you're an elite athlete and you definitely want to level up your performance, definitely look into that one-on-one coaching. Definitely will help you. I did that in my end of my career on the fitness side of things, learned lots of things. It was really beneficial. But before we sign off, to everybody that is listening to our show and watching and supporting us. We appreciate all your feedback and messages, but please, in order to help us grow the show, please follow, like, and subscribe. We will appreciate that so we can continue to have unbelievable guests like Dr. Sherylle Calder. Thanks, guys. Thanks for this unbelievable episode. Learned a lot. Ben, looking good as always. Thanks a lot, Doc.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you for the inspiring questions and just getting my mind thinking again about stuff that's I've probably forgotten already. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sherylle.
Thanks, Doc.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Do it!